Ashley here with the dog Dialectic. Today we're going to be talking about equipment, the equipment that we use, different types of equipment, common pieces of equipment we've seen a lot of our clients and our friends use, what they're intended for, what people kind of misunderstand about them. But first, I want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening to our past episodes. So this is going to be episode 4, where we're going to talk about equipment. Last episode was our behavior mod episode, and that one went really, really well. We got a lot of great feedback for that. We had a lot of people listening in. I think people are starting to discover how great our podcast is, so I'm super happy that everyone's enjoying it. A couple updates for our training. Don't forget, we do offer virtual and online training, online coaching, virtual coaching, video coaching. Even if you're a brand new client, we can do video consults and phone consults. So if that's something you want and you're not quite in our service area, you can always just give us a call, shoot us a message. We can definitely still facilitate some type of training for you. This week was really bad for our weather, so our group classes all week ahead end up being canceled. But don't forget, Mondays is our basic obedience group class, Tuesdays is our advanced obedience group class, and Thursdays is our reactive dog relaxation informal kind of learning opportunity. Let's see what's coming up. So this weekend, I don't think we have anything really on our schedule, but next weekend is going to be the 4th of July Splashdown North American Diving Dogs Dock Diving Competition, and we will be a vendor at that event. 2, possibly 3 of my dogs will also be competing at that event. I think Daria is ready to start earning her dock diving title. Gracie will be doing it at some point. Hopefully, she'll get there. She did so good. She was getting off the dock last night.
Yeah, I think it was last night.
Oh man, so cool. But yeah, if you want to come out and see us, that's awesome. If you have questions or you want to learn about dock diving, hit us up. I'm always happy to meet people at the dock and just have some fun out there. Potentially, we are going to be hosting a dock day. We tried to do it earlier this year, but it got rained out. We're going to potentially try to reschedule it for the end of August. We're looking at possibly August 26th, so keep an eye out for our updates for confirmation on that if you want to come out. We might be kind of having a little informal competition to see who can jump the furthest, who can jump the best. So we might have some prizes, some raffles. But yeah, keep an eye out for that event that's going to be coming up.
You're doing all the fun stuff after I leave.
We do all the fun stuff when you're here too. So don't forget, we are Dakota 283 kennel dealers. We can ship anywhere in the continental US for free. So if you want a Dakota kennel, feel free to hit us up, order from us. We really appreciate the support. We have very competitive prices. We don't charge extra or anything like that. We just want to make sure you're getting what you need. We are also Mini Educator and eCollar Technologies dealers. We can also ship those for free anywhere in the continental US. So if you need anything from eCollar Technologies, hit us up. We can definitely help you out with that as well. Cool. Well, that's enough. Let's get into it. If I didn't introduce myself, I'm Ashley Jacobson, the owner of Airborne Canine. This is Kelly Ortega, and today we're going to be talking about dog training equipment. So Kelly, before we get too deep in the weeds, let's start with what is the absolute go-to bare minimum that you feel like you need to start training a dog?
Probably a slip leash and food.
Nice.
Maybe a clicker if I'm allowed to have something else, but you said bare minimum, so that's my
totally.
Absolute bare minimum.
I like it. Very cool. So the slip leash, I know there's a lot of, there's a lot of the dog training community that I don't think sees the value of the slip leash, but in your opinion, why is the slip leash so beneficial?
Well, I think one, it's the safest option, especially when you're dealing with puppies that like to pull back, or behavior mod cases like last week. If I get a dog attached to me, I do need a way to remove it, or ideally pull the dog away from me. And then also I don't have to have 1,000,001 collars to fit all the different dogs. I don't have to leave it's not going to be left on them at home ideally because it's a leash. But overall for me, safety and sizeability is my favorite thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love the fact that like if you have a young puppy, right, you go out and get a really, really cute collar for that puppy, and within a few weeks it's outgrown it, right? But with the slip leash, they don't outgrow it. And I can use the same slip leash on my Chihuahuas as I do on my German Shepherds. For safety, like the slip leash is the best because the most dangerous thing that can happen is losing control of the dog. So if I'm working with a dog and they're wearing a regular old flat collar and they try to back up, like you said, they try to back out of it, they can slide out of that very easily. I've seen dogs do it. I've seen dogs slide out of harnesses. I've seen dogs slide out of head halters. I've seen dogs get loose on a whole wide array of different types of equipment. And that is absolutely the most dangerous thing that can happen.
I also like so this is gonna sound super weird, but I feel like dog trainers understand it. If you've ever put a slip leash on and pulled on it to like show the client that it's not gonna choke the dog out, the pressure you feel is a lot different than that of a flat collar. If you put the slip lead on correctly, it's gonna be hitting more the side of the neck. Whereas with a flat collar, if my dog's pulling forward, it's hitting all that delicate like trachea and vocal cords and all that stuff that can actually get damaged versus the muscle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best part about the slip leash, and I mean this can also apply for like martingale collars, is the fact that it does spread that pressure around the neck instead of just putting it on the front, like you said.
Yeah.
Which also gives us, you know, one, you're not putting as much pressure on the trachea, so you're less likely to kind of cause injury there. But it's also just, again, the safety of it constricting, which is great.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, like, my bare minimum list was gonna be that slip leash, a bait bag. For me, I personally love my clicker and a place bed.
Yeah.
I love my place bed, right? The place bed just solves so many problems that for like any client that comes in who has any type of complaints for their dog, the place bed can almost solve everything.
Oh yeah, for sure. Place beds and crates come out of my mouth the most.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, the crates are super important as well. But I mean, when it comes to the crate is more just like a management tool.
Yeah.
So when we're recommending like crates to people, what do you usually talk about as far as like how to choose the right crate for their dog?
Well, for one, like I'm of the opinion that like a kennel or a crate is going to be an investment for the most part. Like, you know, Gracie has our Dakota 285. It's purple, beautiful.
33.
It, you know, it was a really nice one that I use every time I travel with her. So I usually will start out talking to the owners about like, you know, imagine if when you traveled, you could take your bedroom with you. You would be a lot less stressed when you travel. And on top of that, I talk about the safety of it too. If I'm traveling and my dog maybe has a little bit of car anxiety, if I put them in a crash proof kennel like of the Dakotas that they've already gotten used to and they're happy to be in, one, that's a safe way for my dog to ride in the car. They're not going to get killed in a car wreck. They're not going to be on your lap. And then they're already used to being in there. It's not anything different really for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like to talk about too, especially like the wire kennels. I have seen the craziest things happen in and like to the wire kennels that I don't think I would ever like use one again. They are scary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I used to use wire kennels. I mean, I feel like I still could use wire kennels for most of my dogs, but even still, like I found the wire kennels end up being really hard to clean.
Yeah.
Like, let's God forbid you have a dog who has just absolutely explosive diarrhea, right? Worst case scenario. Or worse, they have diarrhea and then they end up laying in it and then they get up and then they spin and you know you get it all over the wires. Like it is just such a pain to clean off all the wires and all the intersections of the wires.
Yeah.
Worth it. And even still, like you're not saving that much money by getting the wire crate. They're not that much cheaper from getting a good crate.
Yeah. I mean, you invest in your mattress that you sleep on every night. I want to invest in my dog's kennel because my dog sleeps in the kennel every night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also, you know, because we talked about previously, I used to work at a pet store. and those kennels are not made with like the quality of, let's say, like a Gunner or a Roughland or a Dakota, where they're like put under these tests. We would get kennels back all the time that either like came with one of the bars flopping off or would have like sharp edges on them too.
Yeah.
That's super dangerous for your dog.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when we're talking about like, crash tested kennels, we never want to think what's going to happen if we're in a car accident, right? But God forbid we are. Your dog is not going to understand what's going on. They're going to be either injured or hurt, but regardless, they're going to be scared and they're going to try to run. And so, like, if your windows are broken, your dog could escape out the window. God forbid your dog is ejected from the car, they could just take off. And a fact that like most people don't really understand or never really think about is if your dog is loose in your car, and let's say you are in a car accident and you are rendered unconscious and your dog is loose in the car, first responders might not be able to help you until animal control arrives first. And I don't know if you've ever tried to get a hold of animal control, but they are not speedy.
No, they're not.
They are the slowest of the first responders, unfortunately. So, but yeah, so having your dog in a crate and contained at the very least is super important, but ideally one that is, crash tested.
And
Makes
I would
a little difference.
I've been telling people, I'm like, if I've been riding around with the extra large Roughland in the back of my like Honda Accord, you have no excuse.
Exactly, right? Man, yeah, I'm not looking forward to piling 7 crates in the back of my Suburban. 6 was a lot. So we're gonna do 7.
Just strap them on the roof; they'll be fine.
Yep. So, like we said, that's that's kind of like our bare minimum. Getting a dog started is having that slip leash, having like a treat pouch. I really love to use the clicker. For anyone who doesn't know what a clicker is or what it's used for, it literally is just a small little device that just makes a click sound. And we use it as part of our marker training for our dogs. When I say marker training, I mean it's the indicator that our dog has performed the behavior where we want our desired behavior, and that the reward is coming. So whenever they hear that click, they know that they've done the right thing and they're going to get a treat for it. So you don't necessarily have to use a clicker. I just prefer it. But the other option is you can use your verbal markers. So you can use like the word good or yes or whatever. I am very not good at being very consistent when I use my verbal markers. So sometimes I say yes or yes or yes. And for our dogs, it's totally different when they hear those 3 different connotations or intonations or whatever. Like it sounds very different to our dogs. They don't understand it's the same word. So when I use the clicker, it's the exact same every single time. You can't click in a happy tone. You can't click in an angry tone. You can't click faster or slower. You can only click the way it sounds. So for me, I think it creates a lot of clarity for my dogs with that clicker. My dog knows the exact moment he hears that clicker, he's done a thing, he can get his toy. So for me, that clicker is probably the most powerful tool in my entire dog training toolbox, which when I describe my dog training toolbox is not really literal toolbox, although I do have one. I'm literally referring to my entire house because my whole house is just littered with different types of dog training tools and equipment, including 2 dog treadmills that are in my living room. Yes. Okay, so we talked about that bare minimum, what we would need to kind of just get the dog started. So what would you need to go beyond just like a basic level of obedience with a dog, or maybe a dog who needs a little bit more than just the basics?
I mean, it's gonna like heavily depend on the dog, because like I've definitely like the puppy that just finished her board and train with me, like that dog could probably go fairly far on just slip lead and clicker. But I would say over time, like as you're building drive in the dog and the dog's going like, I love that toy more and more, I love that food more and more, it's going to be harder to, when we're making those more like complex behaviors, to like say, hey, no, this is what we're doing, because they're so hyper focused on getting that reward. So that's when you're going to probably end up moving up with like correction collars, e-collars, like star mark and prong collar kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I was also thinking like a long line too.
Yeah.
Long line is super important when we get into more advanced behaviors, like doing things at further distances. Whenever people are looking for like off-leash obedience, I always tell them off-leash obedience is taught on leash. So if I want my dog to come to me from 30 feet away, I better have a 30-foot long line,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying that I'm necessarily going to need it in order to force my dog to come to me, but if my dog decides to blow me off and not come to me, I better have a way to make sure he understands you're always going to come to me.
Yeah.
But when we start talking about like our training collars, so what are some of the different types of training collars? Not the e-collars just yet. We're gonna get deep in the weeds of the e-collars later. But what are the different types of like training collars that we use?
The star mark collar, the prong collar. We already talked about the martingale collar. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, that's about it, I think. Okay, so the prong collar is probably the one that most people are going to be familiar with. Not a lot of people, like not your average dog owner, doesn't really know about the star mark collar. So, what is the star mark collar?
So the star mark collars, I don't want to say it's similar to the prong, but it's like a similar idea path kind of thing. It's these plastic links that form little like triangles. So it's like a less adversive prong collar because those like prongs are thicker.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes in large and small. So you can kind of have a nice like gradation from the slip lead to the prong collar without going straight from like blunt to sharp.
Yeah. So I was gonna say it is pretty similar. The whole like concept of it is exactly the same. The premise of how it's supposed to work is the same. So something that people don't understand about the prong collar is a lot of people like first time they're ever using the prong collar or they're putting it on their dog, they think that like the prongs themselves are supposed to poke into the dog's neck, and that's what's making it aversive. But in reality, that's not really what is making the prong collar aversive. What makes it aversive, and the reason why it's also referred to as a pinch collar, is when the prong collar constricts around the neck, right? I know we mentioned the martingale collar a few times. If you don't know what the martingale collar is, martingale refers to a category of collars that constrict when there is pressure put on the leash. And that includes just like a flat collar that has a martingale portion to it, which is a portion of the collar that allows it to constrict. But the prong collars and the star mark collars also fit into this category of martingale. And the reason is it has that portion on it, a little extra loop that allows it to constrict when there's pressure put on the leash. So with the prongs, when the collar constricts around the neck, the points of the prongs get closer together and cause a pinching sensation for the dog. Originally, it was designed to simulate a they say like a motherly correction of like the mom correcting the puppies. So when we're talking about the star mark collar does the same thing. It's still that same setup with the martingale kind of system where if you pull on the collar, it constricts a little bit, causing the points of those triangle links to get close together and causing them to pinch. So I know, Kelly, you mentioned that there's a large star mark and there's a small star mark. And when we're like, if we have a dog who's on a slip leash and through training and working with the dog on a daily basis for a while, we establish, hey, this slip leash is not the best tool. We need to move on to something else. What are some of the signs that it's time to try a different training tool with that dog?
I feel like if my correction is not successful, meaning like the dog like feel it hits the end of the leash and it's just like, okay, like what's next? I'm still don't care. And then I'm trying to think because it's weird because like I feel like for me I just like know, if that makes sense. Because you work with the dog so much that it's like I can just feel. Like I've gotten dogs in where I'm like, it's week 1. I'm like, I can kind of tell like what collar you're going to need. Obviously, I keep working on the slip lead because I'm like, least pressure possible.
Yeah.
Usually I'm right and we do end up moving up. But yeah, it's like more of a feeling thing for me. So that's weird.
No, I mean that's pretty common. I think like you get to a certain point, you're beyond, you're definitely beyond that baby trainer role. You have now graduated from baby trainer. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Is it
But
my birthday?
yeah, you're now kind of in that realm where you're becoming more experienced, you're becoming more like you know what you're doing, but the fine line between where you are and being like that experienced professional is being able to articulate, what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it in a way that someone who's brand new would understand. That's a lot of a challenge too.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely understand what you're trying to say. Thank you, Dakota. Dakota's trying to come up in my lap, and we're not having that right now.
Dakota has thoughts.
Dakota has lots of thoughts. So, I think, the way I try to describe what I'm looking for when I'm trying to figure out if this is the right tool for the dog or not. We have a lot of dogs who come in who have a long history of just pulling into the end of the leash as hard as they can. And, if I have a dog who, when I'm first starting working with them, I'm not applying leash pressure on day 1 intentionally, right? But if the dog is just consistently at the end of the leash, trying to go away from me, trying to pull in a certain direction, and does not care about the leash pressure from the slip leash, that's usually an indicator that we're probably going to kind of graduate from that if I can't encourage the dog to come to me with my charming personality and my bag full of food. So, after like a day or two, ideally we want the dog getting hungry enough that they say, hey, yeeting myself to the end of the leash is not getting me anywhere, not getting me any treats, food, whatever. But this lady's got a bag full of food, and if I hang out with her enough, I'm going to get more of it. However, like the young puppy I have in right now, like this dog does not care about food, does not care about me, and is just spending the entire session, well, not the entire session, but spending like a concerning amount of time putting a lot of pressure on the end of that leash, even if I'm not doing it myself. And that's usually where I'm like, this dog obviously does not care about the feeling of the pressure of the leash. And that means, when we do start to add those corrections in later, they're probably not going to be effective because the dog is essentially desensitizing themselves at this early stage. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to throw a prong collar on them today, but I know that as I go up to that correction, the dog's probably not going to give a damn about it, like you kind of described. And you're saying, you're already able to kind of identify that early on. You're saying, like, I know you're probably feeling the same thing. And you're like, oh, this dog is probably going to need a prong collar when we get to that point. So the way I always like to kind of, when I've decided that the slip leash is just not enough, usually I want to go up to a more aversive collar. And the reason I want to do this is because if that dog is getting corrections and the dog doesn't care about, one, the training is not going to be effective. And if I wanted that correction to be effective, the only way I could do that would be to increase the force that we use the correction with. At that point, we're starting to look into possibly causing physical damage, right? If I'm using too much force, I could hurt the dog's neck, trachea, who knows what. So when we're going to increase the aversiveness of our training tool by choosing a different type of tool, we have our star marks and our prong collars. And we did talk about the star marks come in large and they come in small. So which one is more aversive of the large or the small?
The small one's more aversive because there's less surface area.
Mm-hmm. And our star mark collars are the less aversive version of the prong collar. So when I'm increasing the aversiveness of my training tool, I always like to go step by step. So if the slip leash is not enough, I will then go up to a large star mark. If this large star mark is not enough, then we'll go up to a small star mark. If that's not enough, then we're going to go to our prong collars. So for our prong collars, there's two sizes. They come in a few different sizes, but there's two sizes we both primarily use. And for our brand, we only use the Hermsprenger brand prong collars, and they come in various sizes, but we only use the 3.0 millimeter and the 2.25 millimeter. So the thickness or the size of the links for the prong collar is not determined by the size of the dog, the length of the hair, or anything like that. It's all about the dog's need of an aversive tool, and is that 3.0 enough, or do you need to go up to that 2.25, which is now more aversive than 3.0? And when you're thinking about it and you try to remember, I can't remember if it was large or the small was more aversive, always think more pinch per inch. And that's how you know which one's going to be more aversive or less aversive. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
Per inch.
Well, I remember my instructor when I was in dog training school used to say it, and that was the only way I could remember. So now when we're using those more aversive tools, I always like to kind of back off like how much correction I'm giving the dog, not like quantity, but like the level of correction I'm giving, right? When we talk about correction, we're using what we call leash pops. Sorry, Daria's like choking.
Okay, I was like, was that a question?
I don't know. You look like you were gonna say something, so.
I was thinking I was supposed to and not quite sure what my response was supposed to be.
It's okay. Well, so the hope is that we're going to be able to, we're doing this via video today. And the hope is that we're going to be able to post it on YouTube as our video podcast, in addition to having the audio only on Spotify. So there's a lot of people out there who think prong collars are evil. And, you know, there are pictures circulating the internet of a dog that has, you know, these wounds all around its neck that look like they're from a prong collar. God damn it. My dogs are losing their shit. Dante!
Dante's always the drama.
Hey, no, he is drama.
Always Dante or Alba.
Yeah. So there are pictures on the internet of these dogs who have these marks all around their neck that look like they're from, quote unquote, a prong collar, where it like stabbed the dog. But any properly fitted, well-maintained, good quality prong collar used appropriately will never injure your dog, right? So there's this really, like, I don't know if I want to say infamous or famous. It's a picture that I've seen a lot. And it was debunked that it was not caused by a prong collar, but instead someone got one of those cool, like, studded collars with the spikes and turned it inside out and put it on the dog and used it as a prong collar.
What?
Yeah, people are idiots. This is why some people just shouldn't have dogs. And then I've heard stories of people like sharpening their prong collars to make it more aversive. I'm like, that's not how it's supposed to work.
Sounds like you need to like go back to your training method.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So
that's also like why we don't get the dog in and immediately put a prong collar on it. Is both of our little twinning German Shepherd puppies, like mine, if I put a prong collar on it, not that I think she needs it, you know, right now, she would run to the end of that leash and like yeet into it. Like that's not help anything, especially if she already came in scared.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always tell people, like, when we have clients come in, and I know we have a new trainer working with us, who's getting trained up and learning, you know, trying to explain there are a few different ways that we go about teaching and training dogs. And there's the way that we train, and then there's the way that we teach our clients to train. And there is, you know, a pretty, like, it's a subtle difference, but it's a really important difference. And when I'm teaching the client on how to do corrections, I never, even if I think the dog needs it, I never recommend an aversive tool like a star mark or a prong collar until they can do their corrections effectively and consistently and correctly. Because if their corrections are all over the place, or their timing is bad, or, you know, it's sloppy, or it's too hard or too soft, and sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's soft, like, it's just going to confuse the dog. And when we add that aversive collar, whatever you're doing is just getting amplified.
Yeah.
And so if you're giving them bad communication, you're just giving them louder bad communication.
Or like not too long ago we had another German Shepherd and we sent him home. He had like a break for a little bit. We sent him home on a large prong collar, and when he came back we ended up having to put a smaller size on him because the corrections were not correct at home.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing too, is that like if you're just giving the dog misinformation and gibberish, the dog's just going to stop listening, which means they're getting desensitized to those corrections because those corrections become meaningless. So you say, "Hey, this is just, part of life now. I just get these corrections sometimes. I don't know what they're for or why I'm getting them, and I just have to deal with it." And I feel like a lot of people have that issue with the remote collar too.
Yeah.
And so dogs come in like completely desensitized to the remote collar.
Oh, so many times, and like it's the worst when it's like one of the people don't know, so it's not their fault, but like one of the cheaper like Amazon or like the sport dog collar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that like it's a very like their levels aren't small like the mini educator is or like any other technologies, so that dog is like desensitized.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But I do want to like go back to I think a big thing when I started training with you was I got into this mindset, I think, because I was watching you train with Medic all the time, and he was on like a prong, and all the sport dogs are on a prong, and I was like, oh, the like epitome of training is having your dog on a prong collar, and that is not right. That is good. But I think I've seen some other like trainers and stuff around get caught up in that idea of my dog's not finished till it's on a prong.
I mean, the vast majority of the training I do with Medic is without the prong collar.
Yeah.
I know a lot of what you saw me doing with Medic was during protection training. So we're also gauging the type of correction tool based on the situation that we're in, which I'm not sure if everyone would agree with that, or if someone would say I'm creating, a collar smart dog, but I think my dogs are super, super smart, and they're going to know the difference between when they're wearing their collar and when they're not wearing the collar, regardless of how many tips and tricks and, magic wizardry I try to do to fake, I'm taking the collar off, but I'm not really taking the collar off or whatever. My dog knows. So I want my dog to be able to do the behaviors when they're not wearing anything. I want them to be very, very, very reliable when they're not wearing anything. That is what I would call the epitome of dog training, is when my dog has no equipment on and my dog still does the behavior.
Yeah.
But when we're doing things like protection training and there's a decoy sitting right there, which is Medic's favorite thing in the whole entire world, when Miss Kelly is wearing her awesome bite suit and Medic looks at her like a big chew toy, that's what I call a competing motivator. And in order to convince Medic that if he wants to go get his chew toy, he's got to do a heel first, he's going to have some strong opinions about it.
Yeah.
So, and then when I tell him, okay, you've had enough of your chew toy, now it's time to spit her out, and he says, I don't want to, we got to, kind of get through to his thick skull. All that one brain cell firing 1,000 miles an hour, so.
I wish I could have a camera out there when he's like staring at me, because his whole face just like lights up.
You're his favorite person and you're wearing a bite suit. Like, it doesn't get better than that.
I know. He's gonna be so sad when I'm gone.
You're not really leaving, I know.
I wish.
I know you're not leaving. It's okay.
I'm going to jail. It's when I'm outside bail bonds.
Bail bonds. If I bail you out, you're coming to live with me. After you murder your husband.
I'm gonna be on an FBI watch list.
Hey, I'm sure we both watched enough serial killer documentaries that they'll never catch you.
I mean, Gracie, like I did that TikTok of what would Gracie do if I died. I could just feed him to Gracie because she was ready to eat me like right off the bat. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. Like, if I ever killed one of my previous significant others, I was like, man, I would have so much dog food. Like 200 pounds of dog food.
I don't know if you heard me when Kevlar, she was having me talk while she was healing him, and I was like, Kevlar, you want some bicep meat? I think I'm like 70% lean, 30% fat. Like, come over, buddy.
I love it. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my god. Cool, man. So for the dogs who come in, I always tell our clients, I'm like, I do not require that your dog uses any type of equipment whatsoever. The only requirement I always tell them is that if it's a safety issue, then I will recommend a safety piece of equipment, usually a slip leash. And if they don't want to use that, then we just don't train with them. We say, we're going to have to refer you somewhere else. That's usually the only stipulation I have. Granted, I say, hey, these are the tools I'll recommend to you. I know your slip leash, your bait bag, clicker, place bed. If a dog I think is the right candidate for an aversive collar, a star mark prong collar, remote collar, then I will make those recommendations. But I always tell people, like, I think you're fully capable of achieving all of your goals with or without equipment.
Yeah.
That being said, we always, go over how we do remote collar training, and a lot of our clients do opt for that option, which is nice. So let's talk about remote collars.
Oh Lord.
Oh Lord. So you did mention earlier the mini educator. Actually, I have my mini educator here because I did a consult earlier. But so mini educator is probably the standard that most dog trainers will recommend for, client dogs, pet dogs. And the reason is it's the most affordable, effective professional, or I don't want to say professional, but effective remote collar. You do not want to get a cheap Amazon collar. You don't want to get one from a big department store, pet store, whatever. You want to get either the eCollar Technologies brand or better. Now, the cool thing about eCollar Technologies and the Mini Educator is that they just came out with a new and improved model, which is the Fob Educator, which I am absolutely in love with. I know Kelly and I both drank the Kool-Aid, and we both have our Fob Educators with our finger kicks, and I'm never going back.
I use mine every single day.
Yep. I'm so glad I lost my finger kick, and then Kelly found it, and I was so grateful. And then, so the reason why the Mini Educator is great, or by eCollar Technologies, all their models are really nice. One, they're very, very intuitive, very easy to use, very easy to teach someone how to use. They're customizable to a degree where, like, you can reprogram what the buttons do. And you can have like your own personal preferences. I used to work with a guy who loved having it in one program setting, and I really liked having it in a different program setting. And if we had client dogs in and he was working in one day and I was working on another day, it's so easy to switch the programming settings so that way we're still giving the dog the same information. So with most collars, or most quality brand collars, you're going to have two different stimulation options. When we talk about like electric collars, we're talking about electric stimulation. And the two different types of stimulation options is going to be your continuous and your momentary. So Kelly, do you want to kind of describe what the difference is between continuous and momentary?
Yeah, so continuous, and now most of the collars we use do have like a safety shut off. So if it is like bumping in your pocket, it is not going to be continuous for 30 minutes. I think Mini Educator is what, like 5 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. Okay, sorry, numbers. But the continuous, as long as you're holding the button, that stimulation's still going until the safety cutoff time. And then the momentary is like a little nick. So no matter how long you hold that button, it's just like a little like boop, like a little poke. Yeah. I hope that was a good description.
That was pretty good. And actually, I'm pretty sure that like the safety shutoff is a requirement by some sort of like government regulation. But I'm pretty sure that all e-collars have to have that safety shutoff.
Okay.
Or at least they're supposed to. So when we're doing e-collar training with client dogs, usually it's because they want to be able to have a little bit more freedom with their dog off leash, or they're having a problem with what I call the dog's integrity. So off-leash training, most people are familiar with it. It's when your dog is not wearing any type of leash or tether to you, and you can still have your dog effectively do behaviors. You don't have to have a remote collar to do off-leash training, but the remote collar definitely does give you that freedom much more quickly. So I want to talk a little bit about the other side of that, where we're talking about dogs' integrity in their behavior. So when we're talking about integrity, when I used to be in the military, integrity just meant doing the right thing when no one was watching. And so I like to use that to apply to our dogs, right? Oh, my dog is really great, but if I'm not watching him in the backyard, he digs. Or, hey, my dog is really good, but like when we're watching TV in the living room, he goes and gets in the garbage, right? Oh, yeah, my dog's really good, but when I leave him home alone, he chews up the wall, right? These are what we call like dog or canine integrity issues, where the dog is like, oh, mom's not here. Now I'm going to be bad for whatever motivation, whatever reason. Like my dog, I used to have dogs that dig, right? And they had different reasons for why they dig. When we're addressing these problematic behaviors, one, I don't like to just jump to correcting the dog, right? There's a lot of other ways we can fix those problem behaviors, right? We can say, hey, why is my dog doing this? And is there a way I can address that why before saying don't do that? But let's say we've gone through the gambit, we've tried every other method known to man trying to get this dog to stop digging in my backyard. And now we're coming down to our final option, which is what we call unconditioned punishment. Unconditioned punishment is like touching a hot stove. No one had to tell me not to touch a hot stove. And even if you did tell me not to touch a hot stove and I just made a mistake, right? I didn't know it was hot. I put my hand on it. I learned very quickly, don't touch a hot stove. I only had to do it one time. The stove was hot. It hurt like hell. And I'm just not going to do that again. I'm probably going to be very wary of touching a hot stove, even if I live alone, which I do now, and I'm walking in the door with my groceries. I'm probably not going to put them down on the stove thinking, oh my God, it could be hot because I burned my hand one time a decade ago. So when we're talking about unconditioned punishment, I like to think of the, analogy of touching a hot stove. You only have to do it one time, ideally. Some people are not that smart. It takes a couple times. But for our dog, we want to kind of create that. Now, when I touched a hot stove, I had to bandage up my hand. I had burns. I had blisters. Like, it was nasty. It was really bad. And my hand was messed up for like a few weeks. I don't want to do that to my dog. I never want to injure my dog for a learning opportunity. The beauty of the e-collar is that it will not burn your dog. It will not electrocute your dog. It will not give your dog seizures. It will not physically harm your dog. Now, psychologically, we can definitely cause a very significant impact on the dog. And if we're not careful, we can cause some psychological issues or psychological damage when we're using it when we didn't intend to. So, in the instance of my dog digging, right? If I'm out there watching my dog knows not to dig. If I'm out there with my dog starts digging and I run over and go, no, stop that, get out of that hole, stop digging, blah, 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 right? My dog knows that when mom's watching, you can't dig. But when mom's not watching, there's no one out there to tell him no. So, what we like to do with the e-collar in those situations is we put it up on a pretty significant level, a level where it's going to have a significant impact on our dog. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be full blast. It doesn't have to be 100. It's going to be based on the dog. If I have a dog who's fairly sensitive, I could probably do this on maybe like a 25 or a 30. If we're thinking on a scale of 1 to 10, we're still at like a 2.5 or 3. If I have a dog who's a little bit more hard-headed, maybe I'm looking at like a 50 or even as high as like maybe a 70. But I've never had to use that full blast, honestly. So what I like to do is I have my dog outside, ideally someplace where I can still supervise them, but they can't see me. And so maybe I'm watching through my kitchen window, looking at my dog, and he's looking to see if mom's watching as he makes his way over to the hole he's been working on all week. And he walks over to that hole. He looks around, make sure mom's not out here. And the moment he starts to dig, we're going to give him a quick correction on that high level. And he's going to think, oh my God, there's no one else out here. There's no one else to see me. There's nothing here except for me in this hole. So this hole must have caused it. Ideally, we want our dog to think that hole hurts, right? And we're going to create a little bit of superstition that digging causes that feeling, but, you know, that's kind of what I want. I want my dog to be afraid to dig. So we talked about how we use e-collar for, canine integrity, dog integrity, meaning like we're addressing problems such as my dog digging when I'm not looking, my dog getting into the trash when I'm not paying attention, my dog trying to steal leftovers off the counter, right? After we've had dinner and now we're sitting down to watch TV, my dog tries to jump up on the counter. We can use the e-collar to address those problems, but that is not really like the primary use of the e-collar. We're normally using it as part of our obedience training. And when we're doing that, we want to use it on an extremely low level. So, we were just talking, like we use probably anywhere from like a 3 to a 7 on average for most dogs for the mini educator. Now, the new model that came out, the fob educator, is powered down, which means it's less powerful than the mini educator. So to have that same level of intensity for the dog, we're probably going to use a higher level. I usually find them about like closer to a 7 or 8. And this does vary widely from dog to dog as well. So when we're using our e-collar, I've had a lot of people mention, like, there's all the drama that's on the internet. There's all the internet dog trainers. There's all the keyboard warriors. And they all have an opinion about how you should be training dogs. And everyone thinks, that doing this is abusive or that's wrong or whatever. And I've had people say, oh, putting an e-collar on a puppy is abusive. But I generally think that if you can't train a puppy humanely with an e-collar, then you can't train humanely with an e-collar. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, and I feel like we're not. Well, one, I feel like keyboard warriors, which is like a topic to get into. But I feel like you see something on the internet, and it doesn't matter if it's about dogs, about whatever, you're instantly like going to jump to your own idea of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, and I forget who said this, but I saw some trainer was like, if you've got like people, like trainers in your comments, they're probably not very busy for a reason, and they have time to be on the internet and like attack you. They don't have clients, so don't worry about it. But I feel like, and I mean, I guess this is my assumption, is they see that with the puppy with the e-collar. One, they probably don't understand e-collars. I don't want to say they're probably like the forest-free brainwashed people, but like it probably is. And they see that and they instantly go, oh, you're frying that dog. You have that dog on a level 50 and you're just hitting it till it yelps.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is like when people say that you can't, you shouldn't put a e-collar on a puppy because it's inhumane. I'm like, well, what the hell are you doing to these adult dogs?
Yeah.
That a puppy can't take it. The thing is, like, when we're training on such absolutely low levels that, like, we're not being aversive with the e-collar when we're teaching the dog.
Yeah. Well, and my thing too is like you can't fake the dog's body language. It's like such an honest thing for the dog to do. And in all of the videos, because I think which pictures and videos I'm thinking of due to our like previous online adventure.
Yeah.
All of those pictures and videos, the puppies' tails were wagging, their ears were up, like they were happy and wanted to be there. They weren't cowering and going, "Oh shit! Like when are they gonna roast me next?" They were like, "Hell yeah! Like I want to be part of this."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I love doing my e-collar demo for our brand new clients who come in. When I'm trying to teach them enough for them to make that educated, or at least somewhat educated decision on whether or not they want to use e-collar in a way that they're going to understand. Because most people are like, oh no, I don't want to put a shock collar on my dog. They're evil. They're bad. And, that's why I always do the e-collar demo, is to be like, this is essentially how we teach the dog, right? When you feel it, I'm going to start at 0 and work our way up until you feel something. And most people feel it around like a 6 or so. When you feel it, all you got to do is tell me you feel it. And when you tell me you feel it, I'll turn it off. And when I tell them about that and I do that with them, I always ask them, well, did it hurt? Was it, did it harm you? Did it burn you? Did it make you jump out of your skin? Like, no, it just felt like a little tingle. And I'm like, yeah, it was just enough for you to tell me that you felt it, right? Like, yeah. And I'm like, when you told me you felt it, what did I do? You turned it off. I'm like, exactly. So we teach the dog in the exact same way. And not only that, but it can be so empowering for the dog, right? Because the dog learns that they are in complete control of that e-collar. If they don't want to feel it, they know exactly how to turn it off. And when the dog learns that, it allows them to have so much more freedom. So, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I also love like the e-collar is such an accessible tool like for people. Like, when you get it's always like super tiny people with the cane corsos, or maybe an elderly person that their dog's like pulling them down all the time, or they just they just have issues with like being able to handle the leash and things, like physical issues, not just leash handling issues.
Yeah.
That e-collar can be like such a like helpful tool to say, hey, you can still train your dog and handle your dog. It's not about like your strength or your physical abilities. And I think that's where like a lot of service dog trainers will use the e-collar too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Granted, I have a very strong opinion that unless you are an experienced trainer, like, or, have enough know-how with dog training, that if you can't physically restrain your dog when they're at their worst, then it's probably not the dog for you.
Yeah.
When people come in and say, "Oh, this dog is just so big and he pulls me down," and I'm like training is not going to fix this overnight. You might walk out of here and have your dog pull you down or pull you into the street or break a leg or break a hip before we can even start training. And, it might be weeks or even months before your dog is reliable enough in their training not to drag you to the ground. And in that time period, you're risking getting seriously injured because you can't physically handle your dog.
Yeah.
So that's always a hard conversation to have. We could do a podcast on hard conversations.
Oh, yeah, we could do such a podcast on hard conversations.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
They're all hard.
Oh, man. So some of the other tools people come in with that either they don't understand or they purchase and put on their dog with the best of intentions that I do want to talk about. I do want to talk about some of the more advanced tools that we use for training, even for training like simple stuff. But I want to talk about harnesses.
Oh, yeah.
Harnesses. So people come in and they're like, "Oh yeah, I wanted my dog to stop pulling, and so I tried putting a harness on him and it didn't work." And I like to be a little funny and a little bit misleading. And I go, "Oh my God, I love harnesses. I love harnesses so much. I love putting a harness on my dog when I want my dog to pull as hard as they can comfortably." Because they're like, "Oh, you like harnesses. This is great." Oh, when you want your dog to pull. Yes. My dog Tinky, or Medic, he knows that when the harness is on, it's go time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I put the harness on when I put him on the slat mill, when he's going to go run his heart out on the slat mill. I put the harness on when we're going to do protection training. I sometimes will put the harness on when we're waiting in line for our turn to go on the dock because I don't do obedience on the dock. The harness means there's no rules. And it allows him to pull very comfortably without hurting his neck, without hurting his shoulders. It allows him to pull, right? Think about sled dogs. Sled dogs pull in a harness. They love it. That's great. But a lot of people, for some reason, think that it's going to somehow make it so your dog doesn't pull.
Yeah. I just showed like a video of drive capping on the table with Medic. I'm like, look, the harness is keeping him from pulling.
No, they don't know what drive capping is yet. At least some of them don't. We'll get into that eventually. But, I see a lot of people come in with like, front attach harnesses that say they, stops the dog from pulling guaranteed. I'm like, no.
I have so many opinions on this. Oh God.
Well, that's what we're here for, isn't it?
Yeah, so story time. And Jean, as we've mentioned many times, used to work for a retail store as a dog trainer. And in this time, like there would be certain promotions and things that they like want us to push certain products. And a huge one to push, and this might like give me away as to what like store it was the like easy walk harness, I think is what it was called. And it had like a kind of a martingale motion in the front that would like spin your dog around basically anytime they pulled was like the idea. And I'm surprised I did not get in trouble for this, but the harnesses I was supposed to be promoting and selling, I was like openly bashing them to customers because these harnesses that are supposedly, first of all, if you are buying something to supposedly like fix your dog's leash walk, you're stupid. Please find some help with a trainer. They will
You're
say
not stupid. You need more guidance.
Yeah.
Fine. You can call your retail job stupid. Do not call our listeners or anyone who's listening to the podcast stupid.
Well, I also get very like fired up about the Instagram ads that are like, this one thing will keep your dog from pulling. And I'm like, that's not a picture of a trainer, my friend.
Yeah. I have that conversation with people too. They're like, oh, I've tried everything. I've tried this collar, that collar, the remote collar, this harness, head halters, and nothing stops my dog from pulling. I'm like, have you tried training?
Yeah.
And of course, this is what they're here for, right? But, everyone thinks that they're going to have this like solution, like with puppies chewing. Oh, I got that no chew spray, but I think my dog likes it. Like, yep, probably.
That shit's nasty, by the way, because that was another thing I was supposed to promote. And every time I would spray it, it would like linger in the air and get in my mouth. And I was like, never again.
Well, the funny thing was, they were like, it comes with different flavors, like cherry flavored. I'm like, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah. It'd be flavored no chew spray.
Oh my God.
But anyway, these harnesses, they will actually like pull your dog's shoulder blades and create kind of like a triangle towards the front of your dog.
Mm-hmm.
That causes like shoulder displacement and like ruins your dog. And same with like the head halters, like we're supposed to be like promoting those too. And at that point, I barely knew how to train a dog. They hired me due to my horse experience. Like, what the hell? But I definitely didn't know how to train a dog to walk on a halter. I could train a horse to do it, but not a dog.
Yeah.
And those things too, like if the dog runs out, says yeet and gets like whiplash, it could paralyze itself on its neck, like mess its spine up, hurt its face at least.
Oh yeah. We had a client come in and, we always ask, does the dog have any medical concerns, any like, injuries, anything that we need to be aware of? So that way, if they come in for training and we notice an injury, we look to see if they have a history of that injury. And we had a client come in who said that, oh yeah, this dog has an issue with their shoulder and, it's been going on for however long. And the dog was on a front no pull harness. And, I asked what side the dog walked on and, it became clearly apparent. I'm like, how long have you been using this type of harness? And they had started using the harness just before the shoulder issues popped up. Like, we're starting to see a little bit of a correlation here. Your dog walks on this side, they pull this way, and then the harness pulls them right on their shoulder joint repetitively over and over and over again every day when you're going for this 2 to 4 mile walk. Like, it's going to cause some issues. Imagine, like, every day you walk, but you're always walking like sideways.
Yeah.
You're going to have some weird back issues or shoulder issues.
Or like I've seen those harnesses are really hard to teach people to put on. Like they're very confusing, at least the ones like I'm thinking of. But they're also really hard to fit properly. And if you would like
there is no proper way to fit those.
Well, yeah. I mean, in a non-harmful manner that the dog will also not slip out of. But if you want to simulate that, like I challenge everyone listening to this, like squeeze your shoulders like in the front together as hard as you can till the end of the episode. That's what the dog is feeling on the walk. So have fun. You're going to get a cramp.
I feel like I sleep like that and I hate it. Like I feel like I sleep on my side and then like I just feel like my shoulders like squished together in the front, and it's so uncomfortable. I'm trying to like train myself to sleep with my back because I hate it so much.
Just don't sleep.
That's usually what I go with, actually. But the other thing is like the head halters. So there's two different types of head halters I see. There's the gentle leader, and then there's the head halty. The difference is the gentle leader doesn't really constrict. It's just a set size that goes around your dog's face. And then the head halty actually does constrict when you pull on it. Both of these have their own problems. One, right, if we're pulling on our dog's face, we're going to cause a lot of like neck problems. You ever like turn your neck the wrong way, you look the wrong direction, you get that like terrible crick in your neck, or whatever. Like, imagine just doing that to your dog the entire time they're on leash. Like, no. And two, like, if you've ever seen the blood vessels in your dog's face, your dog's nose has so many blood vessels, and you're gonna put a halter right on that. Like, no, just don't.
Well, I mean, I look at it this way. There's a reason we lead horses by the face. Like, it's a 1,000-pound animal. You need some form of leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Your 50-pound dog does not need leverage.
No. Nope. And even if the horses are trained well enough, I've seen people do it without like a halter, just like a rope around their neck, and they'll go.
Yeah, like we used to use a lot of like the rope halters with the knots on the noseband. That's like I don't know, to me that's like a prong collar for a horse.
Yeah.
That's like even more sensitive, and dogs' noses are fairly similar. Like, like the feeling, I reckon, is like pretty sensitive there too.
Oh, I believe it.
It's just couple 100-pound difference there.
Mm-hmm. But for dogs, like their sense of smell is like one of their highest senses, and we use that so much. It hurts me to think that we're going to possibly damage their sense of smell or their ability to use their nose, just because we don't want to take the time to teach our dog not to pull.
Yeah, and it doesn't even promote like a good leash position either. Like, the collar placement should be like promoting that heel position. The head halter like is in front. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, right.
It's like so easily to tangle. Like, they just have to stick their nose down to like sniff a pea spot, and they're tangled.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like you and I both know about opposition reflex too, right? And if I'm trying to use that head halter to put my dog's face in the right position I want, looking up at me, not looking at the ground, not, out ahead of me, all we're doing is creating more opposition reflex where my dog is wanting to pull in the opposite direction that I'm pulling.
Yeah.
So, and that's the big problem with all the tools that are out there that claim that they're going to fix your leash pulling, is the fact that opposition reflex is real. And so there's no tool where you're going to apply pressure for your dog to do something that's going to improve your dog's healing position because of opposition reflex.
And if it is improving your dog's healing position, that's probably not a great tool because they're probably in pain.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, aversive tools have their place, but we want to be very deliberate about how and when we use them. Not just my dog did something stupid and yeeted itself into the end of the leash. I mean, it happens. But if my dog is making that type of mistake, then it's too soon to be adding that type of aversive tool.
Yeah.
I mean, my dogs will heal without any tools on.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, once you're there, those tools can be helpful, like with the right tools. Not with head halters and harnesses, but yeah. So before we go on, we talked about the head halters. Were there any other like common things you've seen, or even uncommon things that people have come in with your dogs?
I have one so hard. Oh God, bungee leash. The
bungee leash.
Which I know we use them for protection sports, but this is not a protection sport area at the moment.
No, we don't use bungee leashes. We'd use bungee lines.
Yeah, difference. But if you go and you buy the freaking Kong bungee, I know they make different brands, but like the one I think of is the Kong bungee leash. That snaps. Like it's just a regular leash. And also, it's not going to teach your dog to not pull. It's going to teach your dog they can pull to extra length if they just keep pulling harder and harder.
Yeah.
Like it makes it worse.
It's just like the harness too. We use the bungee to teach our dog to pull as hard as they can.
Yeah.
Yep. I love it.
And it also snaps the dogs back too. Like not our sport ones that we use appropriately.
Well, I mean, the sport ones do.
Well, yeah,
More
but we're using them in a different context. Yeah. But if I have a Scooter's looking at me because I was just brought a piece of food, if I take Scooter and I put him on a bungee leash and he goes, "Oh my god, a squirrel!" Yeet, and then gets whipped back, like that's not good for him.
Well, most of the bungee leashes I see people buy, like the stretching aspect of it is only going to add like a few inches. So it's not really going to be enough for them to like yeet all the way back.
Yeah.
Whereas the bungee lines we use, I have seen them yeet dogs, including Medic. I have video of it, but fine. Don't worry. It serves a very important purpose, not the yeeting part, but the bungee itself. But when we start to get into like, you know, more advanced skills or more specialized skills, we start to get into like more specialized tools. Like we've already mentioned that things like harnesses have a very special place and have a very special purpose when it comes to things we want them to do. And there are many different types of harnesses as well. So like, you know, if I want my dog to do protection training, we use what's called an agitation harness. And the name of it is a little bit misleading because the harness itself does not agitate the dog. It's what the dog wears when we are trying to get it pumped up and get it excited, i.e. trying to agitate them, getting them into an excited, stimulated state and pulling into that harness as hard as they can. Some of the other types of harnesses would be like our weight pull harness. Weight pull harness looks very similar to what would be like a bike joring harness where they both have an X back. But the weight pull doesn't have the X back. But regardless, you know, they look very similar, and to a novice dog person, they might not be able to see the difference between them. But understanding that they all have very specific uses is very important, right? I'm not going to use my agitation harness to do weight pull. I'm not going to use my weight pull harness to do bike joring, and so on and so forth. And that goes for every piece of tool out there. I swear I have a tab leash that's, you know, 10 inches. I have another one that's like 12 inches, 16 inches. I have a leash that's 3 feet. I have a 4 foot. I have a 5 foot. I have a 6 foot. I have a 10 foot. I have a 15 foot. I have a 30 foot, a 50 foot, and a 100 foot. And each one of them has their own purpose and, you know, role in my toolbox. The same thing goes for collars. I have all the different size star marks. I have all the different size Hermspringers. And each tool is very specific, and not every tool is right for every dog.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could get way deep in the weeds in like what every single piece of equipment is for. But the most important thing that you can get out of this, you know, this episode is understanding that every tool has a specific purpose. And knowing what that purpose is and how to use it is so important to the success of the training.
And not every dog needs every tool too. Just because you see a lot of like nicely trained dogs working on prong collars or whatever doesn't mean that is what makes it a nicely trained dog.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even train Dari on a prong collar yet. And she is going to need one. She's very nicely trained. She's not that yet.
Daria is the prong collar.
She's violent. But, you know, I was talking about earlier, you know, my whole house is a giant dog training toolbox. You know, in, you know, my kennel room where I have like my personal dogs, I have all of the different types of toys for them. I have frisbees, I have different types of tugs and bite rolls and balls, and I have all my dumbbells, my retrieve dumbbells, my retrieve items. In my living room, I have a carpet mill and a slat mill, which are two different types of dog treadmills, neither of which are actually a treadmill. Yeah.
You don't take your dog to Planet Fitness?
I thought about getting just a regular people treadmill, thinking I can actually get my ass on it, but I'll probably just put my dogs on it and sit on the couch and eat ice cream while I have 3 dogs on treadmills.
You're watching them burn your calories.
Yeah. Hey, I was running in the yard today because Daria is very enthusiastic on her recall.
Oh God.
She is terrifying when she's recalling. She likes
Good.
to take out my knees. Yeah.
I
Oh
had
no,
to,
so she has this new game where she likes to go between my legs, but
that,
her aim is terrible.
she's like sprinting to get in between your legs.
Oh, like she is coming at me full-fledged as fast as she can. Most of the time holding a frisbee up over her eyes so she can't really see, but she wants to go between my legs without slowing down.
She's almost like made me fall a couple of times trying to like get in the center while I'm walking, especially stairs.
She loves staying on the stairs. I don't know why.
Yes, it looks like your legs are spreading when you're walking, so she's like,
This is my chance.
"Oh, I'm also down another Star Mark ball today." So
no.
to her. For context, everyone, my first Star Mark ball, I threw a little too far in the lake, and Gracie weenied out. So the Star Mark ball was given to the lake.
Wilson.
I know. Yes, I did feel bad for polluting, but I picked up a lot of trash to make up for it, hopefully. And then today I threw it, and I've got like woods behind my house, and it went into a bush somewhere, and we were both back there, like me and Gracie back there, trying to find this bright yellow ball, and I don't know where it went. I can't find it.
Medical find it.
Bring him over.
Medical definitely find it.
He can traumatize Gracie a little bit.
Oh man. You know, talking about equipment always reminds me. So occasionally you can find, like, it's really hard to find really good working dog equipment. Like, it's not in pet stores. It's not just ready available. I can't just run to the store and go buy my dog a tug. Like, I have to go online to, the working dog equipment sites and find the thing I'm looking for and order it, right? Whereas I can go to any pet store and grab, like, a 6-foot regular nylon leash.
Yeah.
But when we start to get specialized in what we want, like, you have to go to like specific stores. You can't go to Amazon and get a bite suit or a bite pillow, right? However, I always check because occasionally you'll find some good stuff on Amazon. Believe it or not, Viper rolls are now available on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to find an agitation whip. Now, if you don't know what an agitation whip is, it sounds like a torture device. It looks like a torture device. And if you don't know any better, you say, oh my God, what are these dog people doing to their dogs? They're whipping their dogs, but they're not. An agitation whip is not for hitting the dogs. So on Amazon, there's like a couple, like 1 or 2 in the whole site, agitation whips. And one of them has like 2 reviews. And one of the reviews is a 1-star review of someone who didn't even purchase it, but was like, oh my God, I can't believe, Amazon would carry this abusive tool, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, how dare these people, do this to these dogs? This is disgusting, whatever. And then the other review is, pay no attention to that person. She has no idea what this tool is for. Obviously, if you're searching for this and you're looking for this, you actually know what it's used for. You don't hit the dog with it. But what an agitation whip is, I love that because the person has no idea what it's for, is it just makes a loud whipping sound, a loud pop. And that loud pop gets the dogs really excited. I don't know why. It just makes them think like, oh my God, a bunny rabbit, essentially. I don't know why they think that. But whenever they hear that loud pop, they think, oh my God, small critter.
I like that the person was like, I can't believe Amazon would do this. Like Amazon's like a company with morals.
Yeah. Oh, it's the funniest thing. I wish I could find that review and post it because it's hilarious.
That's up there with the video I posted on TikTok, and I had a clatter stick in my hand, and I caught the dog, and I was just like holding it to the side and like making sound, and someone commented, "You're the first person I've seen not hit the dog with that. Good training." I'm like, bro, this is the first time I met this dog. Like, Also, wait till they see the level 3s.
Yeah. Oh man, the clatter stick doesn't hurt them. Yeah. But see, the thing is, like, when I first opened Airborne K9, back in 2020, I had a very weird phone call. And I don't know if I ever told you about this. I got a phone call from like a reporter or a newspaper or something like that. Some lady was trying to write an article and she called me. I'm like, hey, I'm the owner. What can I help you with? She's like, do you kick dogs? I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, in training. Do you kick the dogs? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't personally kick the dogs, but can you give me a little bit more context here? She's like, yeah, we saw this video of some people who said they were doing dog training and they're like kicking the dog. I'm like, I mean, did they say why they were kicking the dog? Did they say what they were trying to do? Like what? So for context, after like this back and forth trying to draw out information from this reporter or whatever, it was a video of a police dog getting recertified. So this police dog was already working out on the streets, already working in a department, and part of the certification was showing the dog getting a bite on a guy in a bite suit. And the guy in the bite suit has to simulate like an actual bad guy trying to fight off the dog. If you're a bad guy and the police send their canine to go bite you, you're gonna fight back. You're gonna try and hit the dog. You're gonna try and kick the dog. You're gonna try and throw stuff at the dog, right? And so, we have to kind of simulate that, but you have to try and do it safely, right? You might hit the dog like in the ribs, but you're not like, punching them. You're not stabbing them. You're not trying to break their ribs. You're trying to simulate what they're probably going to experience in the real world without causing any harm, damage, injuries. And so I was watching this video and I explained that to the reporter. What I also explained in the video was the fact that the dog I was shocked that the dog was already like out on the street because it was a hot mess. The dog was barely gripping, like it was popping off and re-gripping, like it was scared, like it was not good.
You see, reporter lady, this is bad dog training. They're not kicking it hard enough.
Yeah, so he really needs to amp that dog up and like punch him a little bit just to get him going.
A couple stab wounds.
Yeah, oh my god. Daria. Dude, Daria gets on another level if you like start like hitting her sides and patting her real hard and like telling her like he's a bad dog. She's like, oh yeah, give it to me. I'm like, oh Jesus. Oh. She's like, harder, daddy.
Oh god.
Yeah, she's wild.
She's really
fun.
She already is fun. I'm covered in Daria bruises.
She got you good. I like it.
She did get me good, but this kind of reminds me of back when I worked at the pet store. We got a phone call of someone that was like, and this is totally off topic, but they're like, my dog just ate my fentanyl. What do I do? I was like, say goodbye to your dog. Like, you're calling a pet store.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's. Oh god, I hate to laugh at that, but yeah.
Please kennel your dogs while you do drugs, guys.
Yeah.
Drugs are not good for dogs.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, believe it or not, dogs can't do drugs.
No. I'm trying to think of like the other like specialized or like not even specialized equipment. I'm thinking of like my favorite pieces of equipment that I have. Like I have my position box. I have my rubber bowl that I use. I have my dopamine box.
550 paracord's been really useful for me.
Really?
From light lines for like off leash training to dogs trying to murder me when I take their leashes off.
Yeah.
Kind of like an all around tool. Oh, I even have it right now tied around my little blue tug. That way it's not on like, because I don't want to put it on the handle and have greasy targeting like the other handle.
Yeah.
Like tied it super tight in the middle so it won't move. And that way I can kind of like throw it and not mess my leash up by using a leash.
Nice.
I also keep it in my car in case my leash does break because I have anxiety.
Yeah, fair enough. Puzzle feeders. I love those.
Oh, I love my Kong wobbler, which I know we sell the Star Mark bobble. I love
you love your Star Mark bobble.
Yeah, I love my red.
They're available in our pro shop.
They
Or
are
low, low
available.
price of, I can't remember how much they cost.
I don't remember either. I want to say like 25.
I don't know. They're right up here if you're watching the video.
Give us money. Thank you.
Please.
That concludes today's episode.
Yeah, I need to do better about marketing. I'm not good at marketing. I always tell people, man, I'm a terrible business person. And I also tell people, if I ever tell you you are a great business person, that is not a compliment.
Yeah. I gave someone a free lesson one time. By the way, you can't fire me because this is on the podcast. Gave someone a free lesson one time by accident. Because their dog's name was a very common dog name, and I was thinking it was a board and train dog, so I was like, "Oh, just come in for a free refresher," because I don't save people's names in my phone. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." And I was like, "This is weird." They showed up, and I was like, "That is the wrong dog." But I can't be like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot it. Like I forgot you existed. Like, pay me now."
Oh my God, that's hilarious. That
Yeah,
is so funny.
yeah,
I've given people free lessons before by mistake as well. Usually it's just I forget to charge them, and then they leave, and I go, shit, I didn't charge them. Well, at least we both had fun.
yeah. Well, I was like, I'm not gonna charge Airborne Canine for me doing it either. So I guess like no harm, no foul kind of
Yeah.
thing.
You
It
just got
just
experience. That's all.
felt wrong.
Oh. Oh my God. Yeah. But I don't know. I think, on my day-to-day life with my pet dogs, probably one of the most useful tools I use most frequently would be my place beds.
Yeah.
And like even if I go out to eat, like I'll bring like if I'm bringing a dog with me to go out to eat, like they have like outdoor seating, I'll bring like a little soft bed and just put that on the ground next to me and then tell my dog place and then they just hang out in the place bed.
Yeah. Those are so useful because like just having your dog down, one, it messes up your down, and two, they'll start if they're Gracie, they'll start to creep and eat different things off the floor.
Yep. And they'll get well if it's like concrete, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. I've been using my e-collar a lot, and not for the way you're thinking, clickbait. Um, Gracie's a black dog, and most of the time when I'll try to do an exercise session at night because it's been hot outside, and also I've been waking up at 12.
At night?
No, I wake up at like 12 in the afternoon, and then I have to like train dogs, so because I have a
You've been
job.
sleeping in?
I'm
I'm so
sick.
proud of you. Good
Can you
job.
not hear how sick I am right now?
Oh yeah, I didn't think you were sleeping in because you were sick though. I thought you were just
No.
sleeping in because it's awesome.
Also, Brendan's on leave right now, so it's like I don't wake up because he's next to me. I'm like, it's warm.
Okay.
Scooter gets between us, and it's just comfortable. But anyway, I'll use the flashlight on my e-collar.
I call it a headlight.
Well, I give Gracie her headlight. And that way when I'm throwing balls and stuff, one, like, she decides she likes to run off to go poop. So I do have like control of her running off to go poop. But I can also like see where she's at when I'm throwing the different stuff too. So it's super nice.
Yep. You gotta invest in some glow in the dark toys.
I have the collar she wore dock diving, her little dock diving collar. That one's glow in the dark.
Did it work?
Yeah, it was on my ride home after my car broke down at 1 a.m.
Yeah, I got your message at like 2 a.m. I was like, you're still awake. That's amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, I don't even remember what happened when I got home. I was like, I felt like terrible, and I was like, my car died. How am I gonna get to club on Saturday? Like, what the hell?
How are you gonna get to the club on Saturday?
Well, I have to drop kennels off at your house either way, so I at least have a ride to Sanford. If I end up living with Murphy in Jeff's kennel room, then I live with Murphy.
Yes.
Murphy will love it.
Murphy will pee on you. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be fine. Oh God, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, it was glowing the whole way home in my roommate's car, so that was good.
Yeah. I don't know. We were talking about the tools that we use most frequently on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
E-collars, yeah. I like my e-collars a lot. For me, it's hard because I have so many dogs.
Yeah.
All of their remotes all the time, but I do have my one remote that controls 4 dogs, and so I put my most problematic children all on the one remote.
But you also have a fenced-in yard too, so you're not as concerned with dogs disappearing.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I put e-collars. I finally put an e-collar on Daria. Her fob educator has not shown up yet. So she's wearing my extra mini educator. So
Poor Daria.
I know. So sad.
She's like a Slim Jim on legs.
Did you see a TikTok I made of her?
I don't think so. I've been online to like post stuff, but I haven't like been online.
I got you.
I've been playing Minecraft and watching Modern Family.
Hashtag dog trainers. So.
Hashtag.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for tonight. I don't even know what our next topic is going to be. I think our next topic is probably going to be socialization.
Yeah.
Unless we come up with something better. If there's any topics that any of our audience wants to hear, if anyone has any specific questions they want us to cover, feel free to let us know. We're always open for suggestions. We're going to run out of topics to come up on our own pretty quick. No, I'm just kidding. We'll never run out of topics. But, if you have any suggestions, feel free to hit us up. And don't forget, group classes Monday and Tuesday nights at 6:30 at Mendoza Park. Thursday night here at our Sanford location at 6 o'clock. Kelly, what you got?
I mentioned my TikTok a lot, so please give me followers so we can go live on TikTok. KJ.airborneK9 for TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, follow our social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We have it all for the most part. I think we used to have a Twitter, but for some reason, like they deleted our account. I don't know. But yeah.
Twitter's only used for one thing these days, and I don't think Airborne K9 is that thing. So
I don't know what Twitter is supposed to be used for.
I will tell you when we're not recording a podcast.
Oh God. Okay. All right. See you later, folks. Enjoy your day with your dog.